Dr. Richard Scott.
Okay, we're up
Your
to
colleague.
AgResearch now.
So Dr. Marie Bradley, I'm Director of Strategy and Comms, and Richard Scott is here with a number of hats on. So he's a lead scientist in this area of gene technologies. He's also AgResearch's biological compliance facilitator, and he's been involved with NB's technological advisory.
Well, good morning to you both. It's great to have you here. We have you here for 10 minutes. It's good to have you in person. You may use that time as you wish. I'll hand that to you now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So we'll just give a high-level statement, and then we're really keen to hear questions from the committee. So AgResearch is one of 7 Crown Research Institutes. You're also hearing from our colleagues from Plant and Food and Scion today. We have a long history in working with genetic modification and gene editing, and our current focus is very much on modifying pasture species used here in New Zealand to look at increased productivity, options to enhance animal health and welfare, and also to reduce harm in the environment through things like trying to get mitigations of greenhouse gas emissions. Under the current legislation, our research has been primarily done in the lab, where we have wanted to field trial some of the work that we're doing. We've done that in the US and in Australia. So we are supportive of this bill and providing that high-level framework under which there'll be more detailed secondary regulations, and we think that it'll help future-proof New Zealand and also bring us in line with the rest of the world. And so taking that tiered evidence-based approach, I think, is going to be really important when you're thinking about potential amendments, and that having the higher risks or unknown risks scrutinised by a well-equipped regulator will be key part of that. And so we believe that the bill will help accelerate innovation here in New Zealand, and we're looking forward to opportunities to be able to trial some of our R&D in real world conditions here in New Zealand. At that point, if our R&D is proved to be successful, then we think it's up to the industries and the regulator, not us as scientists, to decide whether those industries and New Zealand want to use those technologies. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Carlos, Steve, Deborah.
Just now you mentioned about field tests and you want to do it in New Zealand. So, but you also said that you have been doing it in other countries as well. Can you give us a little bit more information? What kind of safeguard have you implemented when you're doing all these field tests?
So when we did a field test overseas, we've had that basically it was a small area, probably half the size of this room, and it had a wire netting fence around it, approximately 8 foot high, to keep some animals out, and then a strip of bare earth around it. That was effectively the level of containment that was required, so nice and simple there, and perhaps the gate was locked or something like that.
Thank you.
Steve, and then Deborah or Asha? So.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You highlight at the start of your submission the value chains that you assist in producing that contribute to economic growth and beneficial environmental and societal outcomes. We've heard from industry submitters that they would like to see trade and market impacts taken into account, and you're working directly in, you highlight your work in white clover and ryegrass. These are things that would be significant in those things. Would you be supportive of that being a consideration? Not one that you have to make, but one that should be made, given the objective of protecting the economic value of existing farm production?
We believe that particularly industries would be in a good place to make that consideration. It's, I think, one of the things that would be useful to consider is when that consideration needs to be made. And so one of the challenges is early in R&D and through field trials is that an appropriate time, or is it when a decision is being made whether to adopt that technology for general use or farmers decide they would like to adopt it, that you look at the market and trade implications then?
Asha.
When crops are considered for a risk assessment, can you describe the type of scientific information that might feed into that and how reliable it is compared to the actual risk when the crop is then in the field?
So you're talking about the field trial assessment. There's a set series of questions within an application, and that deals with things like ability to maintain that organism, whatever it may be, in containment, considers the modifications that you make, what effect it would have on the environment with those modifications if it was to escape. So those are some of the things that are considered. Also part of that application is the benefits, costs and risks based as well, outside of the science considerations.
Under the current PESNO Act.
Yeah.
How much uncertainty is around those assessments?
These assessments are done to the best of our knowledge. So you're using knowledge from published papers to basically support anything that you're saying in those applications.
If I may, just one more. The concern is that crop starts growing outside where it's meant to and takes off and becomes a pest, right? So how are you able to assess that from the information you have at that juncture?
And that's taken into consideration as well, is that does that change? Does the modification allow it to grow faster or become a weed, if you like? Weediness is part of that consideration.
Yes.
Or potential weediness.
Yes.
Can you explain to the committee what effect the current legislation is having on our scientific, especially in the ag research space? What impacts our current legislation is having on development and future technologies?
I guess in my experience, it's been the imbalance between real risk and what does it have to be applied in terms of containment and processes around that to take place. That adds costs. It also adds excessive or a lot of time as well, because to maintain that containment, cost to build the infrastructure, you have a limited space. Therefore, you have to stagger what you're trying to do, and that lengthens out the whole process. Okay, that's the sort of example.
And you've heard, we've had to field trial overseas because the process to go through approval here is resource intensive.
Yeah, we don't have much time left, so I've got to do. I know Steve's got one as well.
Thank you. I visited Palmerston North the other day and saw that containment lab. It's amazing. But you were talking about conducting field trials overseas with a fence and a buffer zone and things like that. Which country was that in?
That was in the US.
In the US. Would you have been able to do that type of trial in Australia?
Yes, we do have we have trials in Australia at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah, because we've been told that this legislation is going to look like Australia's. Okay, so I just want to understand what the containment rules are like in Australia, and could you operate under those rules?
Each case is different, so it depends on your species that you're taking into Australia.
Yeah,
So, yes,
we are trialling in Australia currently.
Last one, quick, Steve.
How do you practically stop a self-replicating grass like a ryegrass over the course of years and decades? How do you stop it from spreading? I mean, we haven't managed to do that with any other introduced grass species. So we're practically not going to be able to do that, are we?
Practically not.
Yeah. So it will spread. If we release a genetically engineered ryegrass, it'll eventually get all over the place.
But the point of this is that it will be, if it is going to be released, it will be safe. So that's the key point.
So no contamination of those who want to grow without GM, but you're saying that's okay because it will be safe.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if it from the perspective of safety, it will be safe. That contamination issue that's going to be dealt with by processors or industry. So we're not saying that. We are saying that according to this bill, and it deals with safety of the environment and human health, if it is released, it will be safe.
We won't be able to stop it spreading. That's what you're saying. Sorry, we won't be able to stop it spreading.
I honestly cannot say we can.
Thank you. We're out of time. So thank you very much.
I have to be honest, that camera was doing my head in how it was dip down, back up, dip down, back up, dip down, back up. But some very good questions from the, what's it called, MPs.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that, how it's been honed in at the end there, is they won't be able to stop contamination or spreading, stop spreading. Now, two things that come to mind with me is we're always quite happy to do business overseas, except when we're told that we're not allowed to do it at home. So they're quite able to do trials in Australia or outside New Zealand, which if they're quite happy to do them over there, let's do the trials over there. Let's see the mistakes happen in environments that are sympathetic towards it, but let's keep our country free of potential contamination of a neighbouring property and risks to our overseas markets. We should be, Australia, United States, Canada, Brazil, they're big commodity producers. We should be aiming for that niche production. Now, as I say, keep the trials overseas, keep our areas and all of our regions clean and GM free.
Yeah. Okay, let's roll on to the next submitter, which I think. God, I can't keep up with the list of the.
I'm just going to say one more comment on that. He says real risk, but he's only talking the obvious. Eat this and you're going to die. But it is going to have a real risk to our economy. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, exactly. And if it gets in the wrong places, it can literally devastate someone's livelihood.
And is irretrievable.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok.